I should have known something was wrong the moment the music stopped. Looking at the man I was about to marry. The next, the entire room fell silent. Because my brother had just punched me in the face. On my wedding day. In front of everyone. The sound of it echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot. My cheek burned instantly. My body stumbled sideways. My veil slipped. And for a second, I just stood there in complete shock. Tasting blood and disbelief at the same time. Non moved. Non mi guest. Non mi famille. Not even my fiancé. It was like the whole room had frozen around me. My brother, Daniel, stood there breathing hard. His hand still clenched, his face twisted with rage. But it wasn't just anger in his eyes. Il doit fuir. And that was the first thing that made me pause. Daniel had always been difficult. Charming in public. Cruel in private. The kind of man who smiled for family photos. Then shattered people behind closed doors. Growing up, he controlled every room he entered. My parents let him. Et rien did. He lied beautifully. Manipulated effortlessly. And if anyone ever challenged him, he made sure they paid for it. I had spent most of my life surviving him. But this was different. This wasn't just cruelty. This was panic. You have no idea what you've done, he hissed at me, loud enough for the room to hear. My hand flew to my cheek. I could barely breathe. What are you talking about? Première whisperade. But Daniel wasn't looking at me anymore. He was staring at my husband. Aetan. Andetan. The man who had been so calm, so gentle, so steady through the entire chaos of that day, suddenly looked like someone else. He didn't rush to me. He didn't shout. He didn't panic. He just stepped forward slowly, his expression unreadable, and said 5 words that changed everything. Stondon. Diove. The room went still in a different way after that. Because Daniel's face drained of color. Not confusion. Recognition. Pure, instant recognition. And then Ethan said something I had never heard before. A phrase, sharp, cold, precise. Not a sentence. A calsigne. Falcon, 7 to command. I remember blinking through the sting in my eyes, trying to understand what I had just heard. It didn't sound like something a groom would say at his wedding. It sounded military. Contrôle. Dangereux. And whatever those words meant. Daniel knew exactly what they meant. Because, in that exact second, my brother stopped looking angry and started looking terrified. But what I didn't know that day was that the man I had just married was never only a quiet architect with kind eyes and calm hands. And my brother had just made the worst mistake of his life. Because the punch wasn't what exposed him. It was Ethan's call sign. And what came after that destroyed everything Daniel had spent years hiding. 3 black SUVs pulled up outside the venue less than 2 minutes later. That was when my wedding stopped feeling like a wedding and started feeling like an operation. Men in dark suits stepped inside with calm, terrifying focus. No raised voices. No chaos. Just quiet authority. They moved like they already knew exactly who they were there for. For Daniel. Guests began whispering. My mother started crying. My father demanded answers no one gave him. And I stood there, frozen in my torn veil and white dress, watching my husband become someone I suddenly realized I had never fully known. Ethan turned to me, his voice low and steady. "I need you to trust me for 10 more minutes." I should have been terrified. Instead, I nodded. Because, in that moment, Ethan was the only person in that room who looked like the truth. Daniel tried to run. He barely made it 3 steps. One of the men caught his arm and forced him to his knees, so fast the room gasped. My brother screamed, cursed, demanded they let him go. But no one listened. Then Ethan walked over to him, calmly, quietly, and crouched in front of the man who had spent years making me feel small. "You should have stayed away from her," Ethan said. Daniel laughed, but it sounded thin, broken. "You used her?" He spat. "For this." That was the moment my stomach dropped. "Vous êtes-me?" I turned to Ethan, my chest tightening. And for the first time, he looked at me with something heavier than calm. "Regret. I didn't meet you by accident," he said. That sentence shattered something in me. The room disappeared. Zuer disappeared. Everything inside me went cold. Months earlier, Ethan had appeared in my life like safety, like peace, like the first quiet place I had ever known. He was patient, thoughtful, gentle in all the ways I had never been handled before. He listened when I spoke. He noticed when I went silent. He never pushed, never controlled, never made me earn kindness. And now he was telling me it had all started with a reason. A mission. My voice cracked. "What does that mean?" Ethan held my gaze. "It means your brother has been under investigation for 3 years." The room erupted. Not with noise. With shock. Ethan stood and faced everyone. "Daniel has been laundering money through family businesses, coercing women with financial blackmail, and using shell charities to hide trafficking payments." My mother nearly collapsed. My father went pale. I couldn't move. No, I could believe it. That was the worst part. Because suddenly, every missing girl from Daniel's office, every woman who quit without explanation, every whispered rumor, every strange payment, every locked room, every threat I was told to ignore, it all came back. And suddenly, it all made sense. My brother wasn't cruel because he was broken. He was cruel because he believed no one could stop him. Until everything changed. Daniel turned to me, wild-eyed. "He lied to you," he shouted. "He married you to get to me." I looked at Ethan, my heart splitting open. And Ethan didn't deny it. His silence hurt more than the truth. But then he said the one thing that changed everything. "Prove him," said softly. "I stayed because of you." And so, I believed him. Not because it fixed the betrayal, but because pain recognizes truth. And his looked real. Daniel was arrested in front of every person he had spent years trying to impress. In front of donors, friends, business partners, family. His perfect image didn't collapse in private. It shattered in public. And for a man like Daniel, that was the deepest punishment of all. But the real revenge didn't happen in that ballroom. It happened in the weeks after. Because once Daniel was exposed, women started speaking. On Bion. Tendozen. former assistants, employees, women I had never met but somehow already understood. Their stories were different in detail, identical in pain, manipulation, threats, silence, fear. En dessous dans lit, the man who had spent his life controlling every narrative, lost control of his own. The investigation exploded. Accounts were frozen. Properties seized. Humiliated. Charges multiplied. Every secret Daniel had buried began crawling into daylight. Entity team wants him. Not our parents. Not his money. Not his charm. Non mais. Especially not me. Première testifiée. That was the part no one expected. Not the crying sister. Not the humiliated bride. Not the woman he thought would stay silent out of shame. I sat in that courtroom, looked my brother in the eye, and told the truth with a steady voice. For years, Daniel taught me silence was survival. That day, I learned truth was power. As for Ethan, I wish I could say love made everything simple. It did not. Première levée d'Achim. I hated what he hid from me. Both things were true. And healing meant learning how to hold both without letting either destroy me. He gave me space. No excuse. No pressure. Just truth, finally and fully. Piece by piece. Although victime necessary. Sometimes the person who enters your life with secrets is still the person who saves it. Not because deception is love, but because what they choose after truth is revealed. A year later, I stood in sunlight again. No ballroom, no crowd, no performance, just a quiet windy mière and se lève. I wore no veil that day. No illusion either. Juste honesty. And when Ethan took my hand again, it wasn't to complete a mission. Et toi toeska, this with nothing hidden, it for real. And for the first time in my life, I said yes without fear. Because some betrayals destroy you, but some expose what was already poisoned. So it can never touch you again. And sometimes, the worst day of your life is only the day the truth finally arrives.